Welcome to Mountain Stream TV. Today is November the 18th, 2025. I'm Ron Arps. We're doing interviews today, an interview as part of our Community Preservation Forum series, where we talk to people from community, nonprofit organizations and government agencies to talk about the assistance that they can provide to people in our community. Things are a little chaotic in our country these days, and we want to inform people about the assistance that they can get in the areas of health, nutrition, housing, education, and commerce. Commerce is the one that we're going to do today. We have Bernadette Peters, who's the Executive Development Director, Economic Development Director for the town of Sylva, and also is the director, I guess, of Main Street Sylva Association. And she's going to tell us about those two aspects of the economic situation in Jackson County and Sylva, and a little bit about yourself, how you got into this position.
Sure.
And I will let you take it over from here, and I'll have a few questions along the way.
Okay.
But it's mainly we want to hear from you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. I love that you guys are doing this program because it's, I think we do stay in our silos quite a bit, especially in government and nonprofit work, because we're doing the work. And so it's great to have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we do.
Well, thank you.
I'll start with the Main Street Sylva Association, since that's probably the one that people are most familiar with, because that's the organization that puts on all the events downtown and is responsible for working with all the merchants downtown. So the Main Street Sylva Association is a quasi-nonprofit. It's funded primarily through the town of Sylva and partially through grants and donations. The organization was founded in 1985 and became part of the North Carolina Main Street Association, which now has, I believe, 83 Main Street organizations in the state of North Carolina. So we're credited by Main Street America and the North Carolina Main Street program. Both are very challenging to receive accreditation, but those who came before me did a great job doing it for all those years and keeping it up, even though we didn't have a paid person in that position until I came into the program. So, thinking about what is Main Street, and it's very easy to understand the areas that we focus on. So there's 4 pillars, really. Organization is the first pillar, and that's the board of directors for Main Street, and doing the planning, the strategic plan for the year and every 5 years. And those are the folks you typically don't see, except for at the tree lighting. We introduce them and honor them.
Which is coming up soon.
Yes, that is December the 5th. And I'll just put a shameless plug in there. Santa will be there at 3 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, we will have a little break until everyone gathers, and then we'll have a concert, Christmas concert, as well as the tree lighting. So it should be a lot of fun. And so that brings me to promotions, which is the next pillar, and that's the group that puts on every festival and every event and every promotional program that we have. So everything from greening up the mountains to the Christmas parade and Treat Street. It's a committee of volunteers who works tirelessly to put all this together. And then we have design, and that's a volunteer committee that is charged with envisioning and implementing streetscape programs, public art programs, historic preservation, kind of all things aesthetic in downtown. And we work quite a bit with the Public Works Department in the town of Sylva to be able to accomplish this. And then fourth is economic vitality, and that's a volunteer committee that's charged with encouraging economic investment in downtown Sylva, supporting the merchants and the property owners, working with economic developers throughout Jackson County to work on larger issues like housing, childcare, in industry and property development in the area. So that's kind of the second half of my job in economic development. I focus primarily on that.
And you work with other nonprofit organizations like
Yes.
here and the food pantries and things like that?
Yes, we do. And a lot of times we just try to get them involved in things that we're doing, like setting up at Treat Street to get some, some exposure. At Greening Up the Mountains, we work with all of the environmentally focused nonprofits to have them there so that they can get exposure. And we do a lot of partnering as well to help achieve their goals and our goals at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
So across the U.S., there's 1,600 Main Street communities, and it was created as industry left the United States. We had these beautiful little downtowns that were struggling. If you take away their one industry, they were going to fail. And so this was created in an effort to preserve these historic towns and the buildings in them and to make them a thriving place. So we're fortunate to be in Western North Carolina where tourism is big in the mountains. And so that is the primary industry that sustains us, but it's the charm and the locally owned businesses that really bring it to life and draw people to downtown.
So true.
Yes. We do have, quite a bit of volunteers aside from the committees that come make things happen. We do a cleanup weekend twice a year in downtown. Most folks don't even know it until they see people spreading mulch and picking up trash and stickers and graffiti and things like that. So we keep a pretty big database. It takes about 40 volunteers to run the Christmas parade, in addition to every bit of staff that we have in the town of Sylva. So it really is a great program to get people involved. And, the volunteers can also accrue hours to win swag, T-shirts and glasses and, thermal social district cups, things like that.
So getting back to the cleanup, that's coming up too right now?
Yes, so
I see some signs along the highway, cleanup on, forgot what the date is.
So that's been going on the past few weeks.
Okay.
Jackson County's group, Cleaning Up the Mountains, is what they call their initiative, and they work with solid waste and all of the partners there to have the opportunity for people to get bags and gloves and little tools that can pick things up, and then they'll adopt a highway or a section of Jackson County to pick up, and we always do that with the downtown section.
It's a good thing to do. I'm a big recycler.
Oh,
I
great.
really encourage people to, not litter in the first place, but to recycle what they can.
Absolutely.
Sylva is a very nice, clean town. People deserve a lot of credit for keeping it that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because I forget what year it was, but maybe 2016, 2017, we were named one of the cleanest towns in the U.S., which who knows if that's what that was based on, but that was a good observation for sure.
Can you give a little bit more information about how you personally got involved
Sure.
and got into the position where you are?
Sure. I used to live in Decatur, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta, and it had a Main Street community there. I had a marketing business, and I got involved with the program and volunteered for 2 years on the board. So when I came to Sylva, it was, I came to start a restaurant, and it was just natural for me to seek out the Main Street program.
City Lights, right?
Yes, City Lights Cafe, and got involved as a volunteer immediately when I came. So, after the pandemic, I think that strained a lot of business owners in downtown and in the world, really, because the pressure was on during that time. I had a friend of mine come up and help me get through that time period, and she now owns the cafe. But in the meantime, Sylva got some funding to be able to hire a part-time Main Street director. And so I ended up applying and then went full-time 2 years after that.
And also a little bit more information about the history of the downtown
Sure.
association, the people that were involved, if you remember who they were.
So there's quite a list of people. Joyce Moore, Jay Spiro, those are some of the folks that were, I believe Brenda Oliver. And this was before I came to town, so it's not fresh on my memory, but they went through the process to make it an accredited Main Street program, and they did all the hard work. All the streetscape that you see right now, where the utilities are underground, the bump outs that are landscaped are there to make it more walkable and more attractive. They accomplished that as a volunteer board
Do you
completely.
have any knowledge about what events led up to their deciding to take that action?
You know, I really don't. Jay has all of that information at the top of his head, which is why 2 years ago I brought him onto the board, because I thought it would be good to have those roots. But that's something that I know they have documented somewhere. It's probably in my file cabinet somewhere.
And is it mainly business owners who are involved with Main Street, or just anybody can volunteer, or how
Yes.
does the community get involved in Main Street?
So there's kind of two ways to look at that. All of the merchants who are in that downtown district are automatically members of the Main Street Sylva Association. That doesn't require them to do anything. They used to have to pay dues. They don't have to now, but they get all the benefits of the program. So we encourage them to be involved as they can be as a business owner, because they're really busy. But we take the time to make sure that they're included in all the programs that we're doing, even if it's going door to door, sending emails, just, providing them with support. Beyond that, we have quite a few people involved in committees and on the board and as volunteers who do not have a business downtown. They might have a business in the corridor on down 107. We have a lot of Western employees who are involved in the association, a lot of partners like the Chamber of Commerce and the Small Business Center, and they do the lion's share because they know what it takes for a small business, and they know that they don't have a lot of time to be able to give outside of the business.
And you said they're entitled to all the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on the benefits of being in Main Street
Yes.
Sylva Association?
So we have a Main Street website that has database listings for all of them.
Mhm.
They can include their promotions, they can include their events, their logo, contact information, and they can use that to further get the word out about their business. We don't allow any other businesses outside of Main Street in there, but what it does is give them a great tool to be able to share things quickly without putting a lot of effort into it. The same with our social media properties, Facebook and Instagram primarily. We also put out a newsletter to them every week. It lets them know all the events that are going on, if downtown's going to be crowded, if they should staff up for particular surges, opportunities for them to get free business coaching from the Small Business Center, free classes, even do some things to help them buy their building, or take advantage of, if they own the building, take advantage of historic tax credits to improve the building. We just did a facade grant program last year where they were able to get matching funds to preserve their or improve their facade in the front or back. And there's a lot of great little perks that Main Street North Carolina offers. At UNCG, they'll do a rendering for a building. So if they want to make some changes and they want to get a look at what a couple of things look like for their particular building, they can get that. So getting plugged into those opportunities is just a great benefit to being downtown.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
Is there anything on the horizon for downtown Sylva that you envision, major improvements or not so major improvements?
Well, we have a very small footprint compared to most Main Street programs. And what exacerbates it is our topography. So you've got, steeper slopes on each side and just a small channel in the middle. So expanding is a challenge. I don't know how this Main Street program was able to put on a Christmas parade for years, but finding Chipper Curve as a way to line up and come through, and Mark Watson to offload, it's just about the only route we can take, even though we've tried different routes in the past. But all that to say that provides some constriction on how we can grow. Some of the things we've done recently was the expansion and renovation of Bridge Park to allow for more space, and that's our outdoor event space. And a lot of my colleagues in other Main Street programs, their event space is disjointed from the downtown. So they'll have an event, a lot of people will be in the area, but they won't be right there. So really all of our merchants, all they need to do is attract them into their door and convert them to a customer, because they're already there, they're 1 block away. And we try to, encourage them to go up and have events that are not across the dinner hour, so that they'll come up, providing incentives for them. They'll get something for free if they spend a certain amount of money in downtown and show us their receipts, directional signs, things like that. So Bridge Park is really a great asset that we have, as well as Poteet. And then we also, just finished the public restrooms. Those were a long time in the making. And I don't even call them public restrooms anymore, because it's, we call it the Depot Plaza. It is where people gather, which we didn't expect it would get that much use. But with the Rotary Peace Pole there and the kiosks that we have, informational kiosks, the tables for people to eat it, take out from Josh's back street or anywhere else, it's really becoming a great little spot for people to gather.
Yeah, I saw some people sitting out there this morning. I thought, ooh, burr.
But it's so pretty to sit there,
Just to clarify, what are the boundaries of downtown Sylva?
So so there's downtown, and then there's the Main Street boundaries. And Main Street is basically Main Street, Mill Street, and the side streets in between, through to Bridge Park. So if you look at the social district boundaries, they're exactly mirrored of the Main Street district.
So like from the courthouse to Innovation Brewery is?
Yes.
Okay.
The coffee shop.
Okay.
So it goes a little bit further. And that can change as we grow. We can grow at each end a little bit more than we can grow out. But we have to have, kind of critical mass to be able to redraw that map to include them in there.
I'm sort of, I guess a climate change nerd, you could say. I'm very concerned about climate change. So is there any kind of a program in Main Street to help businesses be more resilient or adapt to climate change?
For sure.
To modify their buildings, like I've read about making white roofs or growing plants up the sides of the buildings, stuff like that? So
with those type of educational programs, you've got to balance the historic preservation with the climate. So for example, just when you look at public art, we encourage folks to not paint on historic brick and mortar because it's so porous. It will soak in and degrade the exterior of the building. So there's a lot of other things, like if you were to grow plants up the side of the building, you would have the same challenge. If they've already been painted, like you see on the back side of a lot of those Main Street buildings on Mill Street, if it's already painted, then it's sealed, and that's a good time to paint a mural, or a good place to paint a mural. If you see the Sylva Supply mural that we did on Spring Street, it's the exact imprint of what was once there. So we knew that there was already paint on that exact portion. So those are the things we grapple with. But what North Carolina Main Street has done, and this was before Hurricane Helene, because they saw the writing on the wall with climate change, is how to prepare, how to look at your flood maps, how to know how to retain these buildings, or to, if an incident does happen, to restore them. And so they have provided a lot of educational webinars. Instead of just sending them all out to the merchants who would just glaze over, we look at what's most appropriate for Sylva. And so at the time when I was watching a lot of those video presentations, because of how Main Street sits up, we're less likely to have that kind of problem. Although we have had quite a bit of flooding downtown, the historic buildings have remained fairly intact. Some of the other, merchants on the outskirts have gotten flooded because they're lower and closer to Scotts Creek.
Yeah, every time I drive by I forgot what the oyster.
Creekside Oyster.
Creekside Oyster, right. I think, boy, that's so close to Scotts Creek.
Yeah.
I would worry, but I don't know.
I guess because it's a seafood place.
Right.
There have been a lot of improvements on Back Street over the years. I mean, it's really a nice district now, with a lot of shops and things. And there used to be like propane tanks in front of all.
Right.
And the town managed to get rid of those, I guess somehow, I'm not sure how. But another issue that still exists there is all the electrical wires.
Right.
And is there any plan at all to, at some time or another, put those underground and
So the ones that are hanging above,
yeah.
That sure would be nice. Every time I'm out there, I look at that and think, gosh, what would it take to do this? It hasn't been a priority just because of what it would do to prohibit regular commerce on Mill Street until it could be completely done, especially since we have so many more retailers back there. It used to just be storage and load-in areas, and a lot of the property owners they're easy to convert on that side versus going up and trying to convert the upper level on Main Street. What we did do is 2 of our commissioners and I went around and we met with the utility companies to identify the defunct wiring attached to the wall of the buildings on Mill Street. And once it was tagged, we went through and removed all of those, so it looks a lot better. It still has a long way to go, but a lot of these merchants are working slowly to improve them. We're going to do another round of facade grant whenever there is enough demand for it, and then we'll roll that out again. And that should help with a lot of the painting and things that could make it look nicer. Maybe even, putting some of their air conditioners on the rooftop versus hanging it on the side of the building, which also causes dripping problems. And as you know, Mill Street gets very cold in the winter. Anything that drips freezes. It becomes a hazard. And so we really try to encourage the building owners and the businesses to take care of that when things are dripping. But what would completely solve it is to be able to put those systems on the roof and have adequate drainage from up there.
Yeah, talking about Back Street, I noticed that the picture on your website is Back Street, the Main Street Sylva website. And it's a nice picture, really cool.
It's a far cry from what was the movie?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
You know,
That was filmed.
3 billboards.
Woody
Well,
Harrelson.
no, way before that.
Oh.
I hear banjo music. What's that?
Oh, Deliverance.
Deliverance.
Oh.
So when Deliverance was, and I have a side-by-side picture of then and now, and you know, it looked. I mean, Deliverance chose Backstreet for a reason, Mill Street for a reason. So we're so glad to see how much it's improved over the decades.
And you mentioned the Bridge Park. And well, another thing I was sort of thinking about was the social district. So that those kind of go together in my mind because they're big sort of outdoor event. Tell
Sure.
us about the social district. How has that worked out?
It's worked out great. We were the second town in the state of North Carolina to implement a social district, and
And you could tell us, define that for us if you would too.
sure. So a social district is the ability for people to have a drink that they purchase at a licensed place who has opted into the social district. They get it in a particular cup, and they can walk about town with it. As long as you know the server is doing everything correctly, they give them a cup, they put the sticker on it, and that sort of thing.
We're talking about alcoholic beverages. right?
Alcohol, yes, yes, not just regular beverages. So the North Carolina created this law after the pandemic with the intention to help spur retail sales. I can't say definitively that it has significantly impacted retail sales, but what I do know is that there are more people out on the street than before. The bars and restaurants are turning their tables a little bit more, probably because a family might be there with their kids and they want to go, and dad has to knock down the rest of the beer before he leaves, and now he can just, dad, mom, doesn't matter, aunts and uncles, but now they can walk throughout the district. And then, also having Bridge Park included in the district has made things a lot easier event-wise, so that people can peruse. And so I've got to know in my gut that has caused people to be able to spend money downtown because it's so close and they can carry it through the district. So as far as anything police related, any law enforcement related things, what our police department did is they took metrics from 2019, because they wanted to take it before the pandemic, to measure the calls, alcohol related calls downtown month over month. So when they'd measure October 2019 to October 2021, so they would measure that, and there has been no increases in calls, which is nice. But being the second town, I would never do that again. Like, because you don't have the information, there's a lot of resistance. But what did happen is I ended up talking with about 45 different towns, most in North Carolina, but some even our neighbors across the borders in South Carolina and Georgia, about our experience. I got crazy amounts of calls even from Raleigh and Charlotte about what our experience had been. And so that was kind of fun to talk with them and ask them questions about what their challenges are, what their fears are, and that sort of thing. So that's been a great experience.
No, I'm glad that's worked out. And then, speaking about challenges, how have the challenges of the current economic situation affected Sylva?
It's affected everyone. Supply chain slowing down because of the tariffs, because of being in short supply, because of political things, the prices going up, the need to pay their staff more to keep up with that. It's just a trickle down, and where bigger corporations can weather that storm, the smaller businesses can't. And so that's why you see a lot more of the business owners now versus when I had City Lights, even before the pandemic. They're working in their business as an employee as well as working on their business. And what gets left on the table is the working on their business part. I think we're starting to see them pull out of that a little bit and work on their business a little bit more. But it's hard when someone calls out and you have to work a shift and there's no one to call in because of staff shortages. And it's just a big web of impact for them. But the good news is that we have an amazing tourism and development authority who is very smart at how they market to the people who would come in. They market to those who have higher disposable income. And to your point about being environmentally conscious, to those who are more sustainable. They understand that so that they can have less of an impact on Pinnacle Park, on our trails, on our waterways, on our downtown. I don't know if you guys noticed even during the solar eclipse, but we've had a lot of events downtown and there's a lot of trash to pick up afterward. It was crazy as many people who were at the solar eclipse, how clean everyone was, how kind everyone was. Even at City Lights Cafe, like I had no idea what time it was. And some friends of mine said, we need to put a pause on all these tickets and get everyone out the door to watch the eclipse, even the customers. And so I'm like, how are we going to do this? People are going to get mad. They just walked around and took care of it. And us and the staff and all the customers went outside and watched it. And I was just floored at how kind and peaceful everyone was. So that's kind of the snapshot of what the TDA goes after when they're looking for tourists to come to Sylva. Oh, granted, there's always going to be some challenges with people who come in, and they might be frustrated because they're not getting the type of food they want or the speed that they want because it's tourist season. But for the most part, it ends up being a really, really good thing.
Another thing I've noticed recently is there aren't as many signs saying hiring. For a while, it seemed like every store in town had a sign up,
Yes.
hiring, and now there are not very many. What's the situation as far as employment?
Well, I think there's been a shift to hire more college students than they have in the past. And so right now we're in the school season. I think you're going to see those signs pop back up before the summer again. And the challenge is, it used to be if you hired students, they would become your managers for a couple of years after graduation because they were waiting to find their career job. So let's say they're working in a restaurant through college, they're waiting to get their career job and they would stick around. That's not happening as much lately, and primarily because of the cost of living in Jackson County and the lack of affordable housing. And so that's something that we're just always going to face at this point. But I am amazed at our merchants downtown and how they've been able to figure things out. The pandemic was good because it was a catalyst. I wouldn't say it was good, but it was a catalyst to streamline some things like having online ordering. Not a lot of people had that. And that tends to speed up the process. Some of them have changed their models from table service to counter service. Some of them have added online sales. Retailers have added online sales to spread that out. And so it takes a little portion of the human equation out of it to help with that situation.
Is there still a labor shortage, basically?
Yes. And we're always going to have that challenge until we can get more housing in the area. Even if it's affordable housing or senior housing, it's going to displace other places where people can live. And so, that's kind of the other part of my job, is working with other economic developers in the county and in the region to help get good housing. Childcare is a big part of that too.
Seems to be a universal issue. It's
It
not
really
just-
is.
not just here.
Right. We just have that added layer of a topography challenge.
Yeah, when I look at the big open areas along 107 going out toward Cullowhee, which is outside of your district that we're talking about, but I think about how there could be housing development along there, along with commercial development. But I don't know if that'll ever happen.
I think we'll see that further down in the corridor, where a lot of those buildings were removed for the 107 road project. The remnants of parcels that have been left are pretty thin, which makes it challenging for redevelopment. And they bump up to parcels that are residential or didn't have anything on them that are owned by somebody else. So it's going to be a lot of strategy to be able to combine parcels to accomplish those things. But there's a lot in the works in terms of the end part of that, just past the borders of Sylva. And county economic development has been working with companies, with home developers to be able to develop a lot of that land out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll cause kind of a trickle-down effect where, you know, things can be combined and developed within that narrower part of the corridor as well.
That would be good to see.
Yes, you just have to be patient. It takes, you know, coming from a restaurant industry, I did things fast. You know, you just pivot and you do things. You don't even have to write it on a to-do list because it's that quick. And so in government work, things are a lot slower because you have to go through a lot more processes to be able to accomplish what you want. And so I've had to learn to be really patient. And it's hard. I understand how hard it is for the community as all these changes are happening.
Yeah, it just seems like that 107 is taken forever. But one of these years, it'll all get done.
Well, and a lot's been done that people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
All of the utilities have already been set back, which is a big part of what's been going on. And you've probably seen some trucks working on the stormwater system or Duke Energy out there. They were kind of delayed a little bit because there are things like bat moratoriums where you can't remove certain trees in certain seasons. And so that affected their timeline. And so there's a lot of different pieces that North Carolina DOT is working through to get this project done. And, you know, I'm optimistic that it is going to stick to fairly close to the timeline. We were supposed to have the let date in July, and that's been backed up a little bit. But for the most part, they've been great working with us. The portion that's going to happen right around the high school over there by Ingalls, they're scheduling that during the summer so it doesn't affect the students and faculty there and at Western. There's a bridge project that's being done further down close to downtown in front of Innovation that they're going to redo. That's a major corridor for us to get all of our retail goods, our food goods.
For sure.
You know, and so DOT has been working with us to try to figure out a plan where it can be done over a 2-week period, where they won't have to create a big detour, because, you know, these large trucks cannot make that U-turn from Main to Mill. So they've been really good at working with us to come up with the least impactful plan for some parts of the project.
Be interesting to see how that gets resolved.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know, I was out on the street looking at, like, what the turning radius would be if we could have a staging area, because the thickness that they're going down on that bridge is about 8 inches. And if a semi scooted off it, that would be a problem. And as we started talking, I asked them, are you going to redo the sidewalks too? Can you do them at the same time? And they are. So that'll give more width. So if they just block one side of the road and have someone directing traffic, that would still allow trucks in. And we're going to work with the merchants, like for the retailers. Hey, can you just order all the supplies you need and try to avoid having more trucks coming through here during that period? For the restaurants, can you order a little more on your shelf stable food so that there might be smaller trucks coming in with your fresh food? So things like that, I think we're all going to have to work together to make it as painless as we can.
When is the projected completion of the project?
So we're still looking at 5 years, and the let date, I'm going to a DOT meeting next week, so I'll get an update at that point. But like I said, I know that was delayed because of a couple of situations, plus the Duke Energy setback. But once the let date happens and a contractor is chosen, they'll be able to put their strategy into play into the project, and we'll have a clearer idea of what the timeline is and what's going to happen when.
Boy, a lot of pieces.
Yep.
Do you have any particular things that you'd like to talk about other than what we've done already?
Well, I think that it's, the main thing is it's ever evolving. Even North Carolina Main Street, they're pivoting and giving us more resources than they ever have before. So, I'm really thankful for that. And, some of the resources that we're trying to get the merchants involved in and the property owners involved in are beyond just what Sylva can offer. It's really what the county can offer and the organizations within the county as well as the region. So, like I mentioned, the Small Business Center, they're huge, and they take care of us, Macon and Swain counties. And that everything they do, all of those workshops and classes, they're free. So they can learn everything from, they can take a QuickBooks class to get, to brush up on their accounting practices. They can take social media, AI classes, all sorts of things. So they've been huge. And even like a lot of businesses will come in and they don't even have a business plan yet. They just open the door. So they have to back up a little bit. And as I'm getting to know merchants and I noticed that, I'm like, why don't you go meet with Marnie Harris at the Small Business Center? She can help you get a rough business plan together and maybe help you get some funding to be able to buy some more inventory and that sort of thing. So, having a central point of contact to connect them to the right people tends to be really helpful. And I leaned into that as a business owner as well. So, we have we have Mountain BizWorks, who's a partner based out of Asheville, and they have a dedicated representative in Sylva. They help with succession planning. They help with funding to buy their buildings. They help with cohorts where
Where's their office?
they're located in downtown Asheville, and it's
Oh, they don't have an office in Sylva?
yes, they don't. They used to.
Oh,
They used to, but they consolidated, and they've been able to accomplish more by having it centrally located. But they still serve, a very large footprint, including us. So that's been great. And then, of course, our Council of Governments, they do things behind the scenes that people have no idea. The Southwestern Commission. They service all of the western counties west of Asheville. And what they've been doing in workforce development, they have been doing a dislocated worker program. They've been doing a train up program. All of those things that have funding associated with them. They've been able to, they got a lot of employees from Pactive Evergreen placed, and not just in Haywood County, in Jackson County as well. So leveraging these programs as employers, they've been able to see a lot of these great things happen. We worked with Southwestern Community College to create a culinary apprentice program when staffing was really suffering and we couldn't figure out how to get people in there. And so the state created this incentive that would pay for half of their salary for a period of time. And so we had 5 apprentices in downtown Sylva in culinary, which was really cool and helped a lot of businesses like Lulu's get through that staff time. And I believe they might even have 1 or 2 of them still there. So, these are things that a lot of people in the community don't realize. So I'm glad that you guys are doing this because it probably brings to light a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes.
So how could that communication get improved, do you think? To, that bothers me a lot about, I hear somebody talking about, well, I went to this, or I heard about that, and it's all passed, and I think, how do people find out about all this?
It's really hard. What we do as a community in the Jackson County, which I think that I might be biased, but I think that we have the best collaboration of partners than any other county in the West. And other counties recognize that too, because they've said that to me. You guys are just so coherent. And so we all share each other's information and the programs that each other is doing, because we know that it's going to benefit our people as well. For the most part, all of these groups have that same vision. And anytime someone new comes in, we try to, bring them into the fold to do this as well. But it's hard. As you know, like, let's say you write a grant for something, right? You are at your desk writing this grant for a period of time. Then you have to service that grant. All the while, not really thinking about how am I going to get the word out about how great this grant is, unless that's part of your requirements for the grant. And I think that's the challenge for both government entities and nonprofits. It's like pushing your chair back from the desk for a minute and going, okay, how can I get this out to the community some more? And the Sylva Herald's been great about, even if I'm not sending a press release out, Dave will call me and say, what you got? What you working on? Oh, I can build something with that. And he'll get it out there for me. Same with the TDA. Same with the Chamber of Commerce. And I just couldn't do this job without these partners. They're absolutely amazing. So.
Yeah, the Sylva Herald was very helpful to us when we started this project, too.
Yes.
They did a nice story about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was really great.
They're a wealth of information. I've been working on a project where I have to, I'm submitting a story to North Carolina Main Street. I think it's actually Main Street America for the 250th celebration of America. And it can only be a certain size, but there was a couple of stories that I was entertaining putting in there. And Dave just sent me the whole centennial from, I forget which year it was, but this was right before I came in the door. I converted it to text so I could search it. And I was amazed at how much information is in there. And so, having those kind of partners that can look that stuff up for you, or if I called Nick Breedlove at the TDA, he was involved in doing the historic Sylva book with Lynn Hoagling. They know stuff off the top of their head.
And just to give a little plug, at the Sylva Herald, it's Dave, what's his last name?
Russell.
Dave Russell, yeah, he's very helpful.
Yeah. Smoky Mountain News is great too, WRGC. We're so fortunate, as small as we are, to have that kind of media presence.
The perfect place to live.
It is. It is.
I say that all the time.
Great
I mean
place
it.
to visit, better place to call home.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to know?
No, I don't have any more questions. I appreciate all the information you've given
Oh, yeah.
to us. It's been very informative to me.
Well, good. And if people want to know a little bit more about the Main Street Sylva Association, it's mainstreetsylva.org. You can search for that on Facebook, and that's where all of the events are listed, all the opportunities to get involved, that sort of thing.
We'll put that on the video.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for doing this. It's a great thing.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And I'll definitely, I can link to, the stuff that you're doing too. So, because I want to build out the website more than I have. Again, it's time. And I had an intern help me get it set up because I didn't have the time to do it. We were working off an old one. But I would like to have more connectivity. It has more flexibility than the town of Sylva does, because that site, although I work with that site too, it is government business oriented. Like, people want to know if the trash schedule's been delayed and, you know, how to fill out an RFP for a project that the town is doing or whatever. And so we put kind of more of the community stuff on the Main Street side.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.